Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, Congressional Black Caucus member Karen Bass and billionaire Rick Caruso are running neck to neck in the latest polls hours before today's election for mayor of Los Angeles. Meanwhile, a second-grade teacher at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, is describing the moments he first encountered the gunman who took the lives of 19 students and 2 teachers. Then, the state trial for 2 former Minneapolis police officers charged in George Floyd's killing is being delayed until next year, and we have that story.
Plus, LeBron James is showing support for WNBA star Brittany Griner, and Dave Chappelle is helping the families of the Buffalo grocery store mass shooting. Soulmates, we have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Congressional Black Caucus member Karen Bass and billionaire Rick Caruso are running neck and neck in the latest polls just hours before today's election for mayor of Los Angeles. An LA Times UC Berkeley poll says Bass has a slight lead over Caruso, 38-31. Caruso, a former Republican now running as a Democrat, has pumped millions of dollars into TV commercials and is being endorsed by Snoop Dogg. Meanwhile, Bass is a 6-term congresswoman and LA native who President Joe Biden was considering for vice president. In 2008, she became the first black woman speaker of the state assembly and later led the Congressional Black Caucus. There are a number of other candidates running for mayor. If none of them gets over 51%, then the top 2 will head to a runoff. Today is actually a really big day in Los Angeles. It is super imperative, and I can't say this enough, that we get out and vote. So for me, Karen Bass is, she just has all the experience. When we think about going towards Rick Caruso or Karen Bass, like when we lay it out, Karen Bass, she was being considered for Joe Biden's running mate, like I said. Yes, she's also an activist. She is the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She has been in the fight for a really, really long time. I know part of the things that she wants to change, she wants to look at the homelessness population and see what she can do. She wants to curb crime. I know that she is progressive in the things that she's trying to do. And so, one of the things that she pointed out is when we look at LA and we look at the homelessness, Black people make up 9% of LA. The homelessness population, Black people make up about 30 to 40% of the homeless population. And when you add the Latino community, it turns to about 70% of the population. And so she wants to work to change that, because it's not just Skid Row anymore. When you look around LA, you see the homeless population is everywhere. And so I know that's one of her main priorities, is to fix that. And if she is elected, she would be the first Black woman mayor, the first woman mayor of Los Angeles. And so there's a lot of good things that come along with Karen Bass.
Absolutely. And so if we were to take away the fact that she will be the first Black woman, she will be a woman, more importantly, I want to just focus on what she stands for versus Rick Caruso. There's a story in Vanity Fair that talked about the mayoral race here in Los Angeles is tearing Hollywood apart because people can't decide if they want to go for someone who is a mall owner and a billionaire and has lots of money versus the person who actually, race aside for a second, versus the person who actually is on the ground running and really trying to fight for change. I look at this, and not to compare Rick Caruso to Trump, so not hear me out here. I view this as similar to Barack Obama. You have a Black person really wanting to create change, and then you have a person over here who was, like I said, like he owns malls. He's a billionaire. Like, I don't really know if he's going to have the best interest of Los Angeles in mind. And that's where it gets a little tricky. Like, you have to really make the best decision, but not to mention only 15% of people have cast their ballot. And so voting across the board is very, very low right now for the primary elections in Los Angeles.
And sometimes you think about midterms and elections like this, sometimes they're very, very low because people worry about the gas prices, right? They worry about inflation, some losing their homes. So many things are at stake, but so is the mayor of Los Angeles. This is a big issue. So, Demi, you know this from being in radio. It's all about connecting with the people. So when I think about Caruso, I don't know him. I know what he's capable of doing. I know he comes from money. He's doing great things when it comes to that. But when you think about Karen Bass, how she's been on the show several times and she's approachable. comfortable, and she probably understands more. So that's what it is. But Caruso does have that star power. If you look at his commercials, you see that. But is that enough to touch the people that are really suffering and really hurting in the streets of Los Angeles?
No, that's a really good point. You know, Karen Bass founded the Community Coalition. If you haven't heard of it, go look at it. It's in South LA, all the things that they do in the community. So the point, to your point, Romeo, she is touchable and that she can identify with what we're going through, inflation, high gas prices. I just kind of feel like if Rick Caruso wanted to fix the homeless process, a population, he doesn't need to be mayor to do so. You're a billionaire. Just use your influence and fix it. I don't think you necessarily have to be mayor to want to do something good for the city.
Exactly. Well, he's not using his influence to help the homeless crisis. He's using his influence and his money to build more open air malls and things like that, more ways for him to make money. It's not really about the people. And so also what I don't, and I hate to compare him to Trump, but just being honest here, it's a great comparison. He's had like Gwyneth Paltrow, Kim Kardashian, Elon Musk, and even Snoop Dogg, which is the Trump approach. It is the Trump approach to get celebrity so that people like young, millennials can say, oh, well, if Snoop is endorsing Rick Caruso, then I'll vote for him. Or if Kim Kardashian, and that is not the
Don't
way.
fall for it.
Exactly. And I hope that you take your time and really do your research and figure out what Rick Caruso wants versus what Karen Bass wants and make a sound decision.
Yeah, and I just want to end by saying this. I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm going to read some of it. But with low turnout expected today for today's primary election, they are expecting the voters will be older and white. And so you know what that means. That signifies Rick Caruso. And so we need to get out and we need to vote, because if Caruso garners more than 50% of the vote, he will win. There will be no runoff. So make sure that you go and you cast your ballot.
Yeah. It's seemingly a popularity contest.
Absolutely.
Right now, for sure. We'll keep you updated, so Maze. A second grade teacher at the Robb Middle School in Uvalde, Texas, is describing his moments where he encountered the gunman who took the lives of 19 students and 2 teachers. Amolfo Reyes, he says that he was watching a movie with his students when he heard gunshots ring out. Reyes says that he tried to stay calm when the students asked what was going on. That's when Reyes says that he gave and told his kids to get under their desk in order to keep them safe. That's when the gunman walked into his room and started firing, hitting Reyes. Reyes was hit twice in his arm as well as in his back. And the teacher, he says that he could hear a student in the other classroom call out to officers what they were doing when they were inside of the room. But Reyes says that the cops had already walked away. So much to unpack. We don't have nearly enough time to focus on this story right here, but I just want to keep it on the last part with that the police had already walked away. And that is the sentiment that a lot of teachers have been having, a lot of advocates, students across the board, is that the police really the police failed in this situation and simply did not do enough. The fact that teachers and just humans have to even recount this awful experience, knowing that the police were even nearby, is just really, really shameful.
Yeah, to hear his story, because he's yet another one. I didn't realize, when you hear the stories, I didn't realize that another teacher had also been shot.
Yeah.
He didn't die, clearly, but he was shot in the arm, in the lung, and in the chest. And he waited there until over an hour until they came to rescue him. It's his account of what's happening or what happened to him is so heartbreaking. He said he told the kids to pretend that they were asleep. He said as he was telling them to get under their desk, he turned around and that's when the gunman shot him. And so he said at the time he heard another little kid yell out for help, but the police were already gone. So he's calling them cowards because he said that they just left them there.
He did. He said these men have bulletproof vests. He had nothing. And the reason why I always get emotional and get angry when we talk about this is because I thought I heard the worst of this situation until I heard this teacher's story, right? He laid there for 77 minutes playing dead, realizing, you can hear it in his voice, that he had failed his kids, pleading to the parents of the kids, I'm sorry that I could not help your kids, because no matter what training you give a teacher, if someone gets in their classroom with an AR-15, all that training is out the door. So how do we stop them from getting guns? How do we stop them from getting in schools? You're talking to a man that's lost a child, so I know my life never be the same. You're talking to a man that has a son about to go to the 4th grade, so I can relate to this situation. So there's a lot of anger in my voice right now because this one put me over the top. And we've been talking about this for 2 weeks, but to hear this teacher's story really hit me.
So sad, Romeo. What else I didn't realize, to your point, is that They had a award ceremony earlier that day, and we talked about that. But what I didn't realize is that some of the kids went home. So think about the parents that didn't take their kids home with them and allow them to stay, because he said some of the kids didn't go home, so they were watching a movie, and that's when the gunman came in. I mean, that guilt of, I should have took my kid home with me.
Oh man, it's gonna lay on their mind for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
All right, soulmates. Senate Democrat can count on one of their own to back a gun measure that would raise the age of buying a semi-automatic weapon to 21 years old. Joe Manchin, who is a gun supporter, also says he would not have a problem looking at a bill that banned assault weapons. Manchin, who is the Senate's most conservative Democrat position, is at odds with Republican lawmakers in the Senate. A proposal banning assault weapons by Democrats has no chance of passing. Democrats would need 10 Republicans to get the bill passed, and political analysts say that won't happen.
And for the first time in decades, a majority of Americans now identify as pro-choice. Gallup poll says 55% support a woman's right to choose. It's the highest percentage since 1995, when 65% of Americans were pro-choice. The pro-choice poll numbers tend to fluctuate between 45 and 50%. The new polling information could be good for Democrats this fall during the midterm elections. They hope supporters will especially vote for women to go to the polls in droves and help Democrats take control of the Senate, or keep control of the Senate.
And back in the midst of the counting of the votes after the 2020 election, former President Trump's inner circle, they were pushing him to order private contractors to seize voting machines as well as election data. The Los Angeles Times says a previously undisclosed letter and email was sent out on November 21st of 2020 from a person involved in efforts to find evidence of fraud in the election. The report says that Trump's aides wanted to use private contractors with the help of U.S. Marshals to commander the voting machines. This letter may have been one of the earliest versions of a draft executive order presented to Trump on December 18th. The documents are believed to be in the possession of the House January 6th committee, which is currently holding televised hearings Thursday evening of this week.
Atlanta's Mayor Andre Dickens is trying to help parents in his cry with child care. Dickens says he wants to spend $20 million to improve and subsidize child care and preschool in the city. The average monthly cost of a child care in Georgia is about $1,000 per child. That puts a strain on family resources. The mayor's plan would have his office put $5 million into the plan, while the rest of the funding would come from private donors and the city's public school system.
And the Florida Supreme Court is going to allow the state to keep a redistricting map in place that critics say will disenfranchise black voters. The new map will break up a district that elected Congressional Black Caucus member Al Lawson, the first black person elected to the area back in 2016. The state's high court refused to hear an appeal by a voting rights group who filed a lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis' office, who drew up the map. The state electoral map will disperse black voters into districts that have traditionally voted for Republican candidates.
Hundreds of thousands of students who attended the for-profit Corinthian college's chains will automatically get their federal student loan debt canceled. It's the largest single loan forgiveness ever by the Education Department. The Corinthian colleges shut down in 2015 after widespread fraud, including 2 campuses in Phoenix and in Mesa.
It is a milestone in a journey so many of us have been traveling for quite some time, a journey for justice for everyone who was defrauded by Corinthian colleges. Students who simply wanted to better their prospects in life and instead found themselves taken advantage of by a scam that took their money and gave them nothing in return except heartache.
Investigators say they found thousands of students' scores were falsified to give them passing grades, and that the schools falsified job placement statistics to appear more successful. So what happened when this school here was pretty much the colleges would say, hey, if you come to this college, we have a 92% success rate in job placement. We're going to make sure that you get a job. And so, of course, like, hey, I want to be placed after, that's the goal when you go to college, is to go into your field immediately. Mm-hmm. So these students, they went here, spent thousands of dollars on education, thinking once I get to, finally graduating, I'm going to get placement. And then the students did not get placement. However, I feel like the placement of student loan forgiveness for this story is ill-prepared, knowing that there are thousands and millions of people that are currently looking to get our student loan debt forgiven as well. And so I feel like, hey, this happened in 2015, and I'm sorry to those people that were affected by that. But why didn't that get taken care of back in 2015? It's now 2022, and we are sitting here asking and pleading Joe Biden to give us also student loan forgiveness as well. It just doesn't seem like the timing feels like we're going to latch on to the fact that millions of people are using this. We're going to use this headline. It's going to work. Corinthian. It looks like we're doing something, but it just doesn't seem like good timing for me.
Demi, you summed it all up, because that's exactly what they're doing, right? The timing is off, because if they wanted to do something, they should have did it a long time ago. Now they're doing it, and they're hoping that it just gets lumped in. But see, we are forgiving student loan debt. Look what we did for this college. Look what we did over here. That's what they're doing. They're what we're talking about, the 10,000, the 50,000 for everybody. This is not the same. This is not the same at all. But just a side note, do y'all remember these commercials? They used to be like, "You're not doing anything, so just get up and go to sit on your butt."
Oh, is that the one where you're sitting at home?
That's the one.
Okay.
That's the one.
Oh, then yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They were on like every other minute.
Ooh,
So
okay.
that's how they were
ran
able to
Yeah,
draw in a
those
lot of
people
people.
were frauded, but so were we. Okay, we need our money.
We
need our money back.
We need our 50,000
Exactly.
loans forgiven.
Let's get to it, administration, all right? The Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, is refusing to hear the case of Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the white couple who pointed guns at demonstrators who passed by their St. Louis home during the George Floyd protest, as you see right there on TV. The couple was hoping the justice would overturn a lower court ruling that placed their law license on probation for pointing their guns at people. Lawyers for the McCloskey said they should not have been punished for exercising their Second Amendment right to protect themselves and their home. The Missouri Supreme Court suspended their license earlier this year after the couple pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges.
And the state trial of two former Minneapolis police officers charged in the death of George Floyd will be delayed until next year. Tu Tao and Alexander Kung will now face a jury January 5th. They were initially supposed to go to trial next Monday. The judge says the delay is so the men have an improved chance to get a fair trial from an unbiased jury.
At least 50 people are dead after multiple gunmen opened fire inside of a church in Nigeria. Many children are among those who are dead. The shooting happened in St. Francis Catholic Church in Ondo State as church members were gathering for Pentecost Sunday service. Now, officials say the attackers used guns as well as explosive devices. The priest presiding at the service was abducted.
Robert E. Lee Day and Confederate Memorial Day are one step closer to being eliminated from Louisiana's state calendar. State Senate lawmakers passed a bill 29-4 that would get rid of the holidays. The bill must now go to the House chamber for approval. It's been years since the Confederate holidays have been celebrated formally by state officials. Confederate Memorial Day was established in the state in 1925.
And a new study by Harvard University researchers is debunking a theory that justifies the use of force by cops in the death of people in their custody. The researchers say the syndrome called excited delirium is racist and has no scientific basis. Officers in many police departments are taught that suspects can exhibit superhuman strength during physical confrontations with cops. The theory is often used by police when a black person dies in police custody. The syndrome was referenced in the Derek Chauvin trial in the death of George Floyd.
A Florida man has been charged with allegedly threatening to kill and burn down his black neighbor's house. This is video of Gary Dragon, who police arrested last week for harassment of his neighbor. He's been charged with attempted burglary, assault, and battery, as well as resisting arrest. Daytona Beach police officers went to the house after Dragon's neighbors complained of his yelling racial slurs and threats at the people. Now, residents say that they've called the cops on Dragon numerous times. And Dragon, he says that he was angered after reading a social media post accusing him of being a child predator. Dragon claims that his neighbor posted that allegation.
An Arizona man drowned in a reservoir as 3 police officers refused to help the man when he begged them. The victim, Sean Bickens, was sitting on a bridge after arguing with his girlfriend when Temple officers asked the couple for their ID. Now, Bickens climbed over the railing of the bridge. Bickens jumped into the water and tried to swim away, but could not. That's when he asked officers to help him. One of the cops said he was not going to jump in after him. The officers are on non-disciplinary administrative leave as the Tempe police investigate the incident. If you look at the video, you clearly see what happened. I'm kind of torn in this situation because whatever you did wrong is not worth risking your life, jumping into that water, not knowing if you could swim and not knowing if the current could take control of you. But to hearing the officer say, I'm not jumping to help you, maybe if he's calling for backup, saying we can try and get someone to assist you, maybe showing some kind of action where you're running to maybe to get to throw him something, right? A rope, anything. Not sure if all that happened, but I'm really torn in this situation.
Yeah, because he kind of went in like on his own. It wasn't like he was thrown in. It wasn't like he was just like, I'm just going to go in. And there's another version of this story that I read in The Guardian that said the officer said, don't go in because the current may sweep you away. And he still went in. So with that being said, though, to your point, Romeo, did he call for backup? Did he call the fire department? Did he call anyone once he was in there for help? I don't know. That's the question.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely, because I think we're all a little bit torn about this, but this man is not a lifeguard. So he's not a licensed lifeguard to go in and jump. You know,
we know he can swim.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that it's kind of unfair for us to also place the blame. Yes. Could he have said like, hey, I'll go get some help for you? Yes. But also it's him jumping in is kind of like, and it sounds bad, but it just sounds so bad. But it's also just like, he's letting him know, like, I'm not jumping after you. It also seems like this man kind of knew what he was looking, the outcome that he was looking to get from him.
Yeah, maybe he didn't think it was that deep or he wasn't going to be able to do it, but either way.
And maybe eventually we'll find out if there's something on his record that he was running from.
Yeah,
we'll
you never know.
Yeah.